1997, I had decided I needed to do something besides veterans work. And so I'm looking around for this something to do. I decided, well, Habitat would be a good fit for Tuolumne County because it was a county with a lot of substandard housing. It was a county with a lot of low-income families, and I knew that. So I knew Habitat would be a good fit. I called Hal Lynch, president of the Calaveras Habitat, and he said, well, do you know Ruth Callahan in Jamestown? I said, no, I know. He said, well, she called, she wants to do a Habitat also. So I called her up. We sit there and over coffee, we talked. And she said, I really want to do it. What she was doing loan packaging. She met these wonderful young couples who couldn't qualify for a house, whatever reason, credit, not enough down payment or whatever. And she felt sorry for them. And she said, well, there's got to be something we can do for people who don't fit into that normal mold of first-time homebuyers. And she knew about Habitat. But she said to me, she said, well, Frank, I don't know what to do. I said, Ruth, tighten your seatbelt, darling, we're going for a ride.
Habitat for Humanity is really a grassroots movement. It started as a community gathering together to be able to meet the need that there was not enough affordable housing. And so the community gathered together to change that. We were established in 1999 and we have been in Tuolumne County now for 20 years. And so this year, as we celebrate our 20 years, we not only want to look back at all the things we accomplished, but we also are going to look forward to all the things that we're going to be doing in the future. So at first, Habitat met in the living room at somebody's house. That's how they gathered together. That's where they dreamed up of a vision. That's where they began to raise funds and communicate to the public that this is something that was really needed in Tuolumne County. But soon as they continued to grow, they hired their very first employee, Betsy Harden. She's also the longest employee that Habitat has ever had. And they hired Betsy, and her office was in the basement of somebody's home.
When my husband and I moved to Tuolumne County, like I said, I was trying to find a way to get to know the community. And I was trying to find a way to do that, and I saw this part-time job offer, and it seemed like it was perfect. So that was what initially got me interested. But within a couple of days, literally, they were naming one of the first homeowners, and I met that family, and it altered my life for the next 10 years. It was spectacular to see the response of the woman and her children, and when asked, what does it mean having Habitat home to you? She said, it means my children will know where home is. And I didn't really know that much about the program then, but I knew it was something that I was going to be involved with for quite some time.
Adventist Health did a community-wide survey where they were asking people what they felt was missing in Tuolumne County, whether it be healthcare, education. And out of that survey, 68% of the surveyors felt that there was a lack of affordable housing options, that there was not enough rentals, there's not enough affordable housing to be sold here in Tuolumne County for them to put their families in. Additionally, another 68% consider safe and affordable housing as one of their top 5 greatest needs for their children. 68% of those surveyed said that affordable housing is one of their top 5 greatest needs.
A big part of my life, I was a single mom, and after my divorce, my standard of living changed significantly. And I had to move into an area that didn't give my kids the education that I thought they should have. The home was not as nice as it could have been. I mean, it was a nice, comfortable home, but it wasn't what I was used to. I began to realize that there were other people that were in situations like this, but didn't have the family support system that I had.
I remember one business owner when she looked at the income ranges for qualification, she said, well, anybody making that little money has just made poor decisions. And I was so taken aback, and I was with a board member. We talked for a little bit longer, and then I decided what needed to happen is she needed to meet some of the homeowners. And she did, and she became one of our biggest supporters. And when you realize the people that it's affecting, I mean, our firefighters, they are in the income ranges that we support. You know, it's not people making bad decisions.
For one thing, Tuolumne County is not a wealthy county. It's almost a have and have not. And a lot of the people that are haves are not really, in the sense, wealthy people. They're people that have retired in many instances, have lived a productive life elsewhere and are happily living here. But then we've got a community of people that are young with families that are getting started in life. And some of the people have never even ventured out of Tuolumne County. That really surprised me.
When Habitat for Humanity was first established 20 years ago, it was built based upon all volunteers. So we had volunteers who were not only the board of directors, but served on all the committees, who pushed all the paperwork through, who walked alongside the homeowners. It was definitely a different culture than it is today.
At that point, I was a week short of being 66 years old, and I was the youngest man on the roof. Okay, I was the youngest guy. There was a guy 76, another one 72, and me. Okay, but that's how it got done.
It was a team of people that were giving up their time to be able to make it happen, and a lot of donations. One of my most vivid memories was this guy. He's a janitor at one of the local schools, and he was writing a check out for $10 a month every month, and he was making just a little above minimum wage. If you find like-minded people for whatever your cause is within your community, even a community this small, it's amazing what you can do.
That was, I probably believe, about 2.5 years' work to get to Rose Briscoe's house and get it dedicated. And just an indescribable feeling of accomplishment. We did it. And knowing we did it once, we knew we could do it more times. And it also gave the county notice that we're here to stay, and we're gonna build.
So in 2009, an opportunity came to Habitat for Humanity that just could not be passed up. And that was a subdivision that was in foreclosure that we were able to acquire.
It was an enormous adventure, and it was something that we were so ill-prepared for. But from the county down through our volunteers, through our benefactors, everyone pitched in and really helped the board become kind of a basic builder.
So we went from being this small grassroots in somebody's living room, let's build houses for people in Tuolumne County who are in need, to all of a sudden changing, and let's be a developer in Tuolumne County and build affordable housing, 35 homes.
But I think in the very beginning, we were building a house at about the rate of one every 18 months. And our methodology was that we raised all the money, and then we built the house, and then we raised all the money, and then we built the house.
I mean, we were saving money until we got enough money to build a house, and we didn't have a real sustainable program that made things happen.
We decided that it would be good for us to start to participate in some of the national habitat events to try to get some sense of how do we do this? You know, we had people, we had energy, we had dedication, but we didn't exactly know what we were doing. And I'd ask people, how do you raise your funds? Chair of the fundraising committee. How do you raise your funds? And they said, well, we don't do fundraising. I said, what do you mean you don't do fundraising? Well, it's the restore.
And most Habitat for Humanities have a restore because a restore is really what helps cover the overhead. It is the cash flow of the organization. It's what allows them to be able to operate and have a staff. But unfortunately at the time, our restore was not doing very well.
And initially it was very slow in that because we were very small. You know, I don't come from a a merchandising or a business background. But those that did said, no, the square footage is too small. You know, if you want to raise money, you have to have a large store with a lot of merchandise, especially secondhand merchandise. That first year, if we had a $100 day, it was like, woohoo! You know, we were really, really pleased. And, you know, so it slowly moved forward. And like I said, we hired a restore manager, and she was very good. And we had a lot of volunteers.
Then along comes Trinity Avila. If you had to write a resume to be the Chief Executive Officer of a Habitat affiliate, I'd just use her resume, because it's got everything in there that you need.
So I always tell people that I wasn't even looking for a job at the time that Habitat found me. And my husband came to me and said, you have to see this ad. They are looking for somebody who not only has experience in construction, but has experience in business and experience in ministry.
When we hired Trinity, we were looking for someone who could grow the restore business. And the story, which is a true one, is she went to Habitat before she went to her interview as a stealth shopper. She came into her interview and laid out in front of us pictures of what she'd seen, comments on customer service, and she shared with us exactly what she would do to make that operation grow. And it has so far exceeded our expectations. We just are in awe of what has been done.
And all of a sudden, just the whole project mushroomed. And the restore started to make money hands over fist. And I learned later that that is kind of a typical way that an affiliate grows. But at that time, we also were fortunate to hire Trinity as the executive director. And so it all kind of just came together. But I still email a couple of the prior restore managers that have moved to other states and say, you'll never guess what they made last month. And you know, when I tell that guy who was so happy for the $100 day that we just had a $45,000 month, he just like, how did you do it?
But we also had to change how we looked at things. That we had to look at Habitat not just as a ministry, but also as a business. And how we were going to operate. How were we going to be able to build 35 homes? How were we going to be able to raise the money to do something that seemed so impossible? How were we going to make that possible?
I think the board was out in the middle of builds or out preparing this property, probably more than some of our regular volunteers. It was really heartwarming to witness that.
Actually, when I first started, we set the volunteers all the forms for the foundation. We put in all the rebar, all the steel, built the forms, put everything together, and then subcontractors would come in and do the basic plumbing and pour the foundation. And then it was handed back to the volunteers, and then we would build all the walls.
And so we began to look at how we had to restructure in order to make Parrots Ferry Village a success. And so we went from having a one-person staff and a board run organization, and we changed to becoming a staff-led organization.
You know, it's interesting. I would characterize the growth of Habitat in the time that I was involved would be moving from an organization where the board was a working board to an organization where the board was a policy-making board, and a board where we looked to our staff leadership to help set the course and set the direction. And then it was the board's job to sit behind that executive director, make sure she had the resources she needed, and to make sure that the policies were in place so that we could operate effectively, efficiently, and within the law.
Habitat gets down on the ground and gets it done. Now they've had their growing pains and issues as they've moved up into what is now a sustainable program. And Trinity gets a lot of credit for that. She's led that effort, but they've done a lot of things to make this a sustainable program, and they're building where we were building 1 unit every couple of years, they're building 4 units a year now, and looking at building out what is now called Parrots Ferry Village, where we're sitting and talking right now. And it's amazing. And most of the major industrial facilities in this county support Habitat for Humanity. The mill, the quarry, Blue Mountain Minerals, and SPI, and because they know it's the right thing.
All of that rough framing and stuff is done by the general contractor, and then as the volunteers, we come in and do pretty much the finished work. There is still some rough framing and stuff that we do.
Mitch and I do quite a bit. Again, we do most of the finish work on the homes. We do cabinets, we do base, we do casing, hang all the doors, build out all of the closets, build the pantry, and just a whole bunch of small things, anything that needs to be done.
One of the things that is unique about volunteering with Habitat is being able to see directly who it is you are benefiting by giving your time. You can go to Parrots Ferry Village and see what the benefits are. You can see how beautifully kept those homes are, because that was one of the only sticking points when we first got that property, was people said, it's just gonna be a big slum out there.
I saw someone who had difficulties starting out her life. In fact, one of the comments that this person made to me when I looked, and I said, my gosh, look at all the people you've got out here volunteering. And she says, well, everybody's saying they're gonna give me a chance, but I know that chance says we're gonna give her a chance to fail, and I'm not gonna fail.
One of the first ways that I saw the hand up, not a handout, illustrated was the second one that I dealt with. She was very frank about what her past had been. She narrowed it down to bad men, bad drugs, bad decisions. To watch what happened when we started building her home, her family healed over it. Her brothers, 3 of her brothers were tradesmen. They came to help build her house. And some of them hadn't spoken to her in a couple of years because of the bad decisions that she had made in the past. She went on, like I say, to become a counselor at Maynard's. She's now doing in-home care for senior citizens. Her daughter, who was like this big when I met her 14 years ago, she's working at Mike's Pizza now, and I was watching her work the other night. We were stopped by for pizza, and that girl just doesn't stop. I mean, she's cleaning all the time. She's one of those, I told her, I said, if I ever had a business, I would hire you in a minute, because she was just always looking for something to do.
A few years ago, I was out shopping, and this big, nice truck drove up, and this really handsome young man jumped out of this truck, came up, threw his arms around me and gave me a big hug and a kiss, and he said, Nina, I haven't seen you in a while. And it was one of my first Habitat, a member of one of my first Habitat families. He's just grown. I mean, now I'm so proud of him. I used to read about him in the newspaper, you know, in sports, and then I'd see him out at various fundraisers, and he communicated very, very well. He was very, very confident, and I didn't see that when I first met him. I saw a young, very vulnerable kid, and now we've got a really productive member of the community, and I'm so proud to have had even just a little bit of a part in that.
Habitat is the primary source of continuing to build affordable housing. And they're amazing at what they do. I wish we could have 10 times the output, 20 times the output. It's just difficult to do. But they do more than affordable housing. They also teach people how to own a house, how to manage a house, and how to manage their family lives when they get a house. Habitat's just amazing. And they're helping to solve the problem, because they're making better citizens and better families.
Well, one thing that really hits home with me is it's not in any way, shape, or form a handout. It is not in many ways charity. I would not put charity on it as a tag at all. It is pure opportunity. And like every opportunity that any of us may have, it's up to us to pick it up and do something with it. So they indeed have to make it happen. They put in their sweat equity. They have to be very conscientious and throughout the whole process, whether it be working with Habitat, administration, the board, their realtor, broker, etc. They must follow through. And it's a good deal of effort on their part. It takes commitment and effort. So it's not a handout in any way. It may be a hand up, but that sort of process and effort is what I find very, very important and meaningful, and which makes me very happy to be a part of it.
In order to get a Habitat home, it is not an easy process at all. You have to be able to fill out an application, and then you are actually vetted by a committee who gets to know and see if you're going to be a good partner, if you have financial means to be able to afford a mortgage. Our Habitat for Humanity homes are not free.
Educating the community about the fact that no, these homes aren't given away. That was one of the biggest stumbling blocks, is why should they just be given homes? Well, they're not. They have to put in 500 hours of sweat equity. They have to pay a mortgage. It's a lot less because we don't charge interest.
Celebrating 20 years is a huge achievement for a rural affiliate for Habitat here. Coming up in the next 5 to 10 years, I think we've all got to get our heads together and work out where do we go from Parrots Ferry Village. That is a daunting project, and it's one that's going to be completed in the next 5 years. But where do we go from there? And also, how can we increase the revenue streams? Restore keeps on growing. Hopefully it'll carry on growing forever, but that may not be. And any smart business, any smart organization has to look ahead to that 5 to 10 years.
We are absolutely excited to be able to add another portion to our ministry work here in Tuolumne County, and that is through our home repair program. Throughout the 5 years that I've been here with Habitat, so many people have come through our front doors who are currently homeowners, and yet they have been unable to do the necessary repairs to make their house safe. So our very first repair is Margot's home. And Margot impressed us from the very beginning. She came in to fill out her application, and she was determined to get some ADA ramps that she desperately needed to get in and out of her house. Margot is already a community volunteer. She volunteers over at the hospital. She volunteers at the Center for Nonviolence, and she is such a go-getter. However, Margot has had some health issues, and it makes it really difficult for her to get in and out of her home to do this amazing volunteer work that she does. And so Habitat came in, we checked out her home, and we said, Margot, we can definitely build you an ADA ramp. We want to make sure that you can continue to do the amazing work and the volunteerism that you do in the community, and we want to make sure that you can safely get in and out of your house.
Tuolumne County is a very community-minded county, and if you've got a leadership role in this community, I think you're missing out if you're not getting involved in something that's as exciting and something that's as rewarding as Habitat.
When I first started, there was 2 complete buildings, which meant 4 families. There's 2 homes in each building. And I think there was probably about 4 or 5 kids collectively. And then we completed a couple more buildings, and some more families moved in. And one day it was spring break, and I was standing up on the 2nd story of one of the buildings that we were working on, and I looked out and I saw a whole bunch of kids playing in dirt piles and sand piles with their toys and trucks and bicycles and that. And I got very emotional, and I said to myself, this is the reason we do this. This is why I'm here to build these things.
I live in Columbia, so I pass by that subdivision 3 or 4 times a day. And it's like the sun's going down, the street lights are on, the kids are out there, the dogs are out there, they're throwing basketballs around, they're running, having a good. That's Norman Rockwell, America. It's just Norman Rockwell, and just America at its best. And this affiliate, I think, is a shining example of what I knew this community could do. And if I didn't think that, I probably wouldn't have started it.